The human medical ship arrived above the alien capital in silence. Its hull still carried burn marks from earlier rescue missions, and its crew was exhausted. The planet below had once been a symbol of order and beauty in the galaxy, but years of civil war had left deep scars across its cities and people. Dr. Elias Renner stood inside the medical bay, checking his tools for the third time. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was a field medic trained to work in disasters where rules often collapsed. Humans had been invited into this system only because alien healers were overwhelmed. No one expected much from him. Humans were known for being fragile, short-lived, and emotionally strange. Elias did not care what they thought. People were hurting, that was enough. A sharp alarm echoed through the ship. A tall alien aide entered the bay, her skin a pale silver blue, her eyes wide with fear. "The Queen has fallen," she said. "She is dying." The words hung heavy in the air. Elias froze for only a moment before grabbing his medical kit. "Take me to her," he said. The aide hesitated. "You are human." "Yes," Elias replied calmly, "and I'm a medic." That seemed to be enough. She turned and moved quickly through the corridor, Elias following as alarms echoed through the royal complex. They entered the inner medical chamber of the palace. The room was vast, filled with glowing symbols and ancient technology. At its center lay the Queen of the Virelian Empire. She was larger than Elias expected, her form powerful even in stillness. Her dark, scaled skin was marked with old scars, signs of countless battles. Several alien physicians stood around her, their hands shaking, their voices low and panicked. "She is failing," one of them said. "The wound has reopened." Elias stepped closer. "What wound?" None of them answered right away. Their eyes moved away from the Queen's back, where her royal cloak had been partially removed. The aide spoke softly. "It is a bond wound, received during her mating years. It never fully healed." Elias frowned. "Then treat it." A wave of tension passed through the room. One physician backed away as if Elias had spoken something forbidden. "We cannot," another said. "No one can." Elias looked at the Queen. Her breathing was shallow. Her pulse, visible along the side of her neck, was weak and uneven. Infection was spreading beneath the skin. He had seen this before on human worlds, in refugee camps and collapsed cities. "Why not?" Elias asked. The oldest physician spoke, his voice heavy. "The area of the wound is sacred. Only her bonded spouse may touch it. To do so without that bond is death for her. Or the one who touches her." Elias stared at them in disbelief. "She's dying." "Yes," the physician replied, "and there is nothing we can do." Elias clenched his jaw. He moved closer to the Queen despite the murmurs behind him. He carefully scanned her with his handheld device. The readings were bad, very bad. The wound on her back was deep, old, and angry. Layers of tissue had fused incorrectly. Infection had found a place to grow, hidden beneath tradition and fear. "She doesn't need rituals," Elias said. "She needs treatment, now." Guards shifted near the walls. Weapons hummed softly as they powered on. The aide whispered urgently, "Humans, stop, you will be killed." Elias looked up at the guards, then back at the Queen. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment. They were a deep gold, sharp even through pain. They focused on him. "You," she said weakly. Elias stepped closer. "Yes, Your Majesty, I'm a medic, I can help." Her gaze searched his face as if measuring something beyond his words. Pain tightened her expression. "No one has touched this wound since my mate died," she whispered. Elias swallowed. "Then let me be the first." Silence filled the chamber. The Queen closed her eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then she gave a small, almost invisible nod. "Do it," she said. Chaos erupted. The physicians shouted protests. Guards stepped forward, weapons fully raised. The aide cried out in fear, but the Queen raised one trembling hand. "Stand down." Her authority cut through the room like a blade. The guards froze. The physicians fell silent. Elias did not waste another second. He put on sterile gloves and gently removed the remaining fabric from the Queen's back. The wound was worse than he imagined. Human medicine would have treated this years ago. He worked slowly, carefully. He cleaned away infected tissue, applied neutralizing agents designed for cross-species use, and adjusted the damaged layers beneath the skin. His hands were steady, his breathing calm. At first, nothing happened. Then the monitors began to change. The Queen's pulse strengthened. Her breathing deepened. The color of her skin slowly stabilized. The room filled with quiet shock. One physician stepped forward, disbelief in his voice. "She is improving." Elias continued working, focused entirely on the task. He spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. "You should have told someone sooner," he murmured. "Pain doesn't get better when ignored." As he finished cleaning the wound, a strange warmth spread beneath his hands. The skin responded not with rejection but acceptance. The infection retreated as if driven away by an unseen force. Elias pulled his hands back slowly. He stepped away, heart pounding. The queen inhaled deeply and opened her eyes. This time they were clear. She sat up slightly, supported by the bed. Her gaze locked onto Elias again, sharper now. "You did not die," she said. Elias gave a tired smile. "That's usually a good sign." The physicians stared at him as if he were something impossible. "That area," the oldest one whispered, "rejects all unbonded contact." The queen placed a hand over her back, her expression shifting from pain to confusion. "It did not reject him," she said quietly. A heavy silence fell. The aide stepped forward slowly. "Your Majesty, the law," the queen raised her hand again. "I know the law." Her eyes never left Elias. "According to our biology," she continued, "only a true spouse can tend that wound without causing death." Elias felt a chill run through him. "I'm not." "I know," the queen said, "and yet my body accepted you." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Fear, wonder, anger, the queen stood, her strength returning faster than anyone expected. She faced the gathered court. "Seal this chamber," she commanded. "No word of this leaves until I decide." The guards obeyed instantly. She turned back to Elias. "Human medic. You have done something no one else could." Elias lowered his head respectfully. "I just did my job." The queen studied him for a long time. Then she spoke words that would echo through the empire. "From this moment forward," she said, "your life is under my protection." The physicians gasped. Elias looked up in surprise. "And," she added, her voice quieter but heavier, "we must now face what this means for you and for me." Outside the sealed chamber, the palace continued as normal. But inside, something ancient had shifted. A human had touched the queen where only a spouse should, and the universe had not stopped him. The sealed chamber remained silent long after the queen finished speaking. Elias stood where he was, unsure whether to breathe or move. He had treated wounded soldiers under fire, pulled children from collapsed buildings, and worked through plagues that wiped out cities. Yet nothing had prepared him for this moment. The queen turned away from the gathered physicians and guards and walked slowly toward the raised window overlooking the capital. The city lights shimmered like broken stars below. She placed one hand against the glass, steady and thoughtful. "You may all leave," she said. "Except the human." The words struck Elias like a physical force. The physicians bowed quickly and left in tight groups, whispering in fear. The guards hesitated, then followed orders, sealing the chamber again from the outside. Only Elias, the queen, and the silver-blue aide remained. The aide looked torn between loyalty and fear. "Your Majesty, this situation—" "I am aware," the queen replied calmly. "You may go as well." The aide bowed deeply and left. Now the chamber felt vast and empty. Elias finally spoke. "Your Majesty, if I've broken some law I didn't mean—" "You broke nothing," the queen said, turning to face him. "You revealed it." She studied him openly now, not as a ruler judging a subject, but as a warrior studying an unknown force. Elias felt exposed, like every thought was written across his face. "What is your name?" she asked. "Elias Renner." "Elias Renner," she repeated slowly, testing the sound. "You touched a wound that has rejected every healer of my people for over 40 years. Elias nodded. "It was badly infected. Any body, human or not, would struggle with that." "Not like this," she said. "My species does not allow such contact without consequence. Pain, shock, sometimes death, yet you caused none of it." Elias hesitated. "Then maybe your law is cultural, not biological." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but curiosity. "That law is written into our instincts," she said. "Into our cells. We have tested it for thousands of years." Elias shifted his weight. "Humans test things too. Sometimes we find out we were wrong." A faint sound escaped her throat. It took Elias a moment to realize it was laughter, soft, surprised laughter. "You speak to me without fear," she said. "I respect you," Elias replied, "but fear doesn't help patients heal." The queen tilted her head. "Interesting." She walked closer, slowly, deliberately. Elias did not move. He refused to step back, though his heart raced. "When my mate died," she said quietly, "this wound became more than physical. It became a symbol of loss, of rule without balance." "I'm sorry," Elias said. She waved it away. Sympathy is not required, strength is. She stopped only a few steps away from him. My people will not accept this easily, she continued. A human bonded to their queen, even accidentally. I'm not bonded, Elias said quickly. I don't feel anything unusual. The queen placed a hand lightly against her back where the wound had been. I do. The air between them felt charged, heavy with meaning Elias could not fully grasp. You will remain here, she said. Under protection, under observation. Elias frowned. Am I a prisoner? No, she replied. You are a question. That answer unsettled him more than chains ever could. Hours passed. Medical scans were repeated. The queen's recovery continued at an impossible speed. Her strength returned, her senses sharpened. Every reading confirmed what the physicians feared. The bond response was active. News could not be contained forever. By the next cycle, whispers filled the palace. Nobles argued in private halls. Religious leaders demanded answers. Military commanders requested emergency audiences. The queen allowed none of them in. Elias was given quarters near the royal wing, guarded day and night. The guards treated him with a mix of suspicion and awe. Some avoided his gaze. Others watched him as if expecting him to transform into something dangerous. Elias spent his time reviewing alien medical data and writing reports for Earth Command. He kept his language careful. He did not know who was reading. On the third day, the queen summoned him again. This time they met in a smaller chamber, less formal. She wore lighter armor, ceremonial but not restrictive. The wound was fully sealed now, leaving only a faint mark. You heal quickly, Elias said. So do you, she replied. Emotionally. He gave a small smile. Humans adapt. It's kind of our thing, she considered that. Adaptation without loss of self, that may be your greatest weapon. She activated a holographic display. Symbols shifted, forming images of alien fleets, borders, and warnings. Rival empires have noticed the change in my condition, she said. They are watching. Elias studied the display. They think you're weak. They hope I am, she corrected. And the bond, he asked carefully. She met his gaze. They will see it as corruption or opportunity. Elias took a slow breath. I don't want to be the reason your empire suffers. The queen stepped closer again. You are not the cause, you are the catalyst. An alarm suddenly echoed through the palace. Red lights flashed. Assassination attempt, an automated voice announced. The queen moved instantly, instinctively placing herself between Elias and the door. Elias reacted just as fast. He grabbed a nearby medical scanner and slammed it into the control panel, sealing the chamber. Multiple life signs approaching, he said, reading the display. Elite team, the queen's eyes burned with controlled fury. They came sooner than expected. A blast shook the door. Elias felt fear rise, but he pushed it down. Is there an escape route? Yes, she said, but it requires passing through the upper spire. Then we move, Elias said. She paused, studying him. You would risk yourself for me again? He met her gaze steadily. I don't leave patients behind. Another blast rocked the chamber. They moved together through hidden corridors, alarms screaming around them. The queen fought with lethal precision, her movements powerful and efficient. Elias did not fight. He guided, redirected, sealed doors, and disabled systems using logic and speed. At one point, a blast threw Elias to the ground. Pain exploded through his side. The queen turned instantly, rage flashing across her face. She knelt beside him. Stay down, she ordered. Elias coughed, forcing himself up. Not happening. She hesitated, then nodded once. Very well. They reached the upper spire as palace guards finally regained control. The attackers were neutralized. Elias leaned against a wall, breathing hard. The queen stood before him, her chest rising and falling. You could have fled, she said. Yet you stayed. Elias smiled weakly. Seems like a habit now. She reached out, placing a hand over his heart. The contact was brief, respectful, but meaningful. My people believe a spouse is one who shares burden, she said softly, not comfort alone. Elias felt something shift inside him then, not instinct. Choice. Outside, the palace slowly returned to order. But inside, the queen's gaze lingered on the human medic. The galaxy had made its first move, and humanity had not stepped away. The palace did not sleep after the attack. Guards doubled their patrols. Ships moved into defensive positions above the capital. Messages arrived from every corner of the empire, each one demanding answers the queen had not yet given. Elias rested in the medical wing, his side wrapped and healing. The injury was not serious, but the queen had insisted he be monitored. Two guards stood outside his room at all times. They did not speak to him, but they watched him with new eyes, not suspicion anymore, respect. When Elias finally rose from the bed, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. "You recover quickly." The queen entered without armor, wearing simple royal attire. She looked less like a ruler and more like a warrior who had laid down her weapons for a moment. "Humans heal fast," Elias replied. "Sometimes too fast for our own good." She stepped inside and dismissed the guards with a gesture. The door closed softly behind her. "You should have left," she said. "After the attack." Elias shook his head. "If I left, it would confirm what they think." "And what is that?" "That humans only act brave when it's safe." The queen studied him carefully. "You understand politics better than you admit." "I understand people," Elias said. "Politics is just fear wearing expensive clothes." For a brief moment, her expression softened. The days that followed were tense. The queen summoned her council for the first time since her recovery. Elias was not present, but his name filled the chamber like a living thing. Some nobles demanded his removal, others demanded his execution. A few argued that the bond itself proved the universe had chosen him. The queen listened in silence. When the arguments ended, she stood. "The bond exists," she said. "That is fact. It was not created by ritual or desire, but by action." "And action can be undone," one noble argued. "No," the queen replied calmly, "only denied, and denial has already nearly killed me once." The council chamber fell silent. At the same time, messages arrived from beyond the empire. Rival powers issued formal challenges, thinly disguised as concerns. Fleets gathered near border systems. They believed the queen's strength was compromised. They were wrong. The queen summoned Elias to the strategic command hall. Holographic maps filled the space. Alien commanders stood stiffly around the table, clearly uncomfortable with a human's presence. "Speak freely," the queen ordered them. Elias studied the maps quietly. He did not rush. He asked questions, simple ones. "Why do they think you're weak?" he asked. "Because the bond is seen as distraction," one commander replied coldly. "And because I did not respond with violence," the queen added. Elias nodded. "Then don't respond with what they expect." He began pointing out patterns, supply lines, overconfidence. Political fractures within the rival alliance. "You don't need to fight them all," he said. "You just need to make them doubt each other." The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. The queen watched Elias closely, not at his hands or his words, but at his intent. He did not seek power. He sought stability. Orders were given. Human logic combined with alien might created something new. Small fleets moved with precision. Information was leaked carefully. Trade routes shifted. Old rivalries were quietly encouraged. Within weeks, the alliance opposing the queen began to fracture. When the first hostile fleet crossed into imperial space, it found no glorious battle waiting. Instead, it found empty systems, disrupted supplies, and allies who no longer answered calls for support. The attack collapsed without a single major engagement. Across the galaxy, something changed. Humans were no longer seen as weak. Inside the palace, the pressure grew heavier. Religious leaders demanded a formal declaration. The bond could not exist without definition. The queen could not rule in uncertainty. One night she summoned Elias to the private garden overlooking the city. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly around them. "My people require clarity," she said. "They need to know what you are to me." Elias stood quietly beside her. "And what do you need?" She turned to face him. "Truth." He took a slow breath. "I did not come here to become anything other than a medic. I don't feel bound by instinct. I don't feel ownership. What I feel is responsibility." She nodded. "That is what a spouse means to us. Not control, not command. Responsibility freely accepted." Elias met her gaze. "Then say that." The next day, the queen addressed her people. Elias stood beside her, not on a throne, not below it, but at her side. She spoke clearly and without ceremony. "The bond did not choose a ruler," she said. "It chose a partner." She explained what Elias had done, not the biology, the choice. "He did not touch me because he was destined to," she said. "He touched me because I was wounded." Silence spread across the capital. "I do not claim him," she continued. "I stand with him." Elias felt the weight of the moment settle into his bones. The declaration sent waves through the empire. Some resisted, many accepted, most understood. Humans did not dominate, they did not submit, they stood. Months later, the galaxy adjusted. Trade expanded. Joint missions increased. Human medics worked openly alongside alien warriors. Laws were rewritten. Bonds were redefined. The queen's wound never returned. One evening, Elias and the queen stood again at the palace window. "You changed everything," she said. Elias shook his head. "No, I just cleaned a wound." She looked at him, eyes warm and steady. "Sometimes that is how empires are healed." Above them, stars burned quietly, and humanity's place among them was no longer questioned.